You that are on here, thank you so much. For those of you, most of you do know that we have joined up with Sports Performance U definitely this year and part of last year. This basically came from me as the goalkeeper coach at what was Everton, and sending one of my goalkeepers at the time over to Alex, who was struggling physically. Long story short, the confidence of this young man at the time shot through the roof through just the physical elements and the confidence in himself. And that led to maybe Alex, I think, sending a couple more. And then the relationship came on board. And then, especially having worked at the college level and seeing the importance of the correct physical elements to the college game and trying to strengthen players in that regards. We joined up with Alex, and now we have our office here at 37 Danbury Road. And some of you, I think, looking at the people that are here, most of you have seen our facility and how I'm looking here. We've got a couple of players doing the learn to train right now. We've got out the window and a couple more right now. And every day we're here seeing some players do something. But I think Alex is here really just to talk about, rather than just me saying, how good this is, to give you some education along the way to see the benefits long term and short term of the performance training, and how that can help your kids down the road, both physically and mentally, with regards to confidence. Alex, I'm going to try here to. It's been a while, by the way, everyone, since I've used Zoom. We did it all in the pandemic, but I've almost forgotten how to do this. Anything you want to say there, Alex, while I try and make you the main person on here?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head that, hopefully this is a chance to kind of talk about why training is important, answer some questions. We formed the relationship so that we could, create an avenue for Inter to have, a very comprehensive training program to help kind of round out. I know, from my conversations with you, it was all about trying to make sure you were offering all the services you wanted to your kids and giving them every avenue possible to get better. So, and hopefully we're adding to that service and, able to give a little bit. And I know part of the reason why, we chose to kind of hit the middle school ages, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, was just because these kids are kind of coming around. So as your kids are getting about to the age where training is a consideration, I think we both thought it might be worthwhile to put a little bit of information out there and answer the questions and, let everyone know why we're doing it and, go from there. So, did I leave anything out there, Leon, or does that sound about like what you were thinking too?
Yeah. We're going to get on this, and at the end, we've got something for everyone, and there's an opportunity to answer questions as well. But I think you're the host now, Alex.
Yeah, I'm the host, so I'm trying to share my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen now, Leon?
I can. I think.
Okay, so you've got this. All right, so let me make this full size now. So hopefully everyone's able to see this. We just put together a couple slides just to give ourselves a little bit of structure. But, the idea is now, why do we want to train middle school players? Why is this the right time? And what benefits we're going to get from this? So I'll try not to be long-winded. I'll try to get through it relatively briefly, but still be thorough. So, the first and immediate questions that we needed to ask was, why should middle schoolers train? And the first answer, the simple answer is, training is crucial to improve performance. If we want to be faster, stronger, have better stamina, be generally healthier, reach your potential, by definition, you've got to train to do that. Your body is a trainable thing. It grows collectively. And if you do want to reach that potential, it's mandatory to train. You're not going to see very many folks who reach the highest level without putting in a significant amount of training. And not necessarily just on a soccer perspective, but for the sake of this conversation, from a strength and conditioning perspective. If we make your muscles stronger, you should, it stands to reason that you'd be able to play better. The second thing that I thought, why should middle schoolers train, and specifically why now, is really 6th to 8th grade is our targeted beginning age group for performance training. This is really where we try to get our kids started. And there's really two main reasons why the kids are now old enough to train. The first is mentally, they've hit their formal or abstract operational cognitive levels. If you adhere to, Piaget's, youth progression, which means they can now mentally handle, what it means to train, to say, hey, I'm going to put in some sweat equity today and reap the benefits of that in the future. That's not something that an 8-year-old grasps particularly well. And it's hard to motivate an 8-year-old in that sense. So when we work with the younger kids, it becomes more game formatted. But when we're looking at the 6th, 8th grade group, these kids have now hit that abstract operational level, and we can say, hey, it's important to be motivated, and this is what you're benefiting from this. I think right now with the kids who've been coming in from Inter, we have a number of kids who are 11 and 12 years old, and they've responded to it extremely well. They've really been able to grasp mentally what they're doing and understand that a little sacrifice and sweat now is going to pay off in the long run. The second reason why 6th, 8th grade is the right targeted group, because they've now begun adolescence, and adolescence is important because we've now begun to hit some chemical changes that allow their body to actually benefit from a slightly more structured training program. When a kid's 9 years old, they're not going to get a ton of benefit from working on a lunge or something. They get benefit from learning the exercise, so it benefits them in the future. But in terms of actual strength gains, the muscle is not going to tear and repair the same way. Once they get to 11, 12, 13 years old, we start to see the chemical changes take place that need to happen. We've also seen them now begin to go through a growth spurt. This is really the right age for their bodies to begin an intelligently programmed exercise program. That doesn't mean walking in the weight room, picking up the biggest dumbbells. It means, beginning to train and learning how to train properly and getting a little bit of benefit from it. The other reason why we like kind of target that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade age group is a lot of times by the time a kid has gotten to 10, 11, 12th grade, they've already kind of developed bad habits. And if we can catch them before that happens, we can get them started on a better track. We get a lot of kids that come to us as 11th and 12th graders and say, hey, I'm now thinking about playing college sports. I want to see if I can put in the work to be a college athlete. And they come in and they've trained themselves into a rut, whether it was because then they were in their basement on their own and they didn't know what they were doing, or, they were at their high school training and they didn't really have a strength coach in there with them, or, whatever the situation is. A lot of kids, when they come in at age 16, 17, 18, have already begun to develop bad habits. They've developed idiosyncrasies. They have preconceptions to lifting that don't necessarily translate well, and they're not getting the most out of their time. So we want to catch them, of course, when they're old enough to handle it, but also when they're young enough that we can develop their first habits rather than have them develop habits on their own. Because to be honest, 11, 12, 13, even 15-year-olds are not known for always being great when it comes to training on their own. So these are kind of the reasons.
So the bench press at 14 years old, just getting in there like I used to do and just try and bench press as much as I could. That's no good.
Yeah, no, we 100% get those kids. We have kids who come to us and, they're 14 years old and like, well, I started lifting and I do all these things in my basement. And we're like, okay, well, how's that going for you? Well, my knee hurts and my back hurts. And okay, well, that sounds about right. Being able to do things properly and have training and go through, our analysis process. We won't dig too deep into that, but just in simplest form, saying, forming an intelligent training program based on science is important, and starting off that way is important, and can allow us to head off bad habits and injuries and overuse injuries before they happen. I'll move on to the next slide here. So the benefits of training, I've kind of outlined 4 here, just to go through them quickly. The first one is injury prevention. We don't want kids to get injured, and research shows a very strong correlation between, improving musculoskeletal fitness and a reduction in musculoskeletal injuries, particularly in fractures. When the tissue is stronger, it supports the joints better. You don't get into as compromised positions, and we just don't see as many fractures. That's a fairly well-researched item, and it's definitely the first and foremost reason is to make the players available. The second thing here is improving physical outputs, and by physical outputs we mean speed, power, strength. Because ultimately that's important. How hard can you kick a ball? How fast can you run? How quickly can you change direction? How high can you jump? Those things are not necessarily sport-specific skills, but they're hugely important to the game. They're things that we have to be able to do, and we can help kids get better at that, and improve their athletic performance. Next is skill acquisition. So going more specifically into soccer, if we have a kid who comes to us with what we'll call a movement restriction for now, we know that's going to affect them in more ways than just training. It's going to affect the way that they play soccer. So if we have someone who comes in and they have we'll just say, for example, an ankle mobility restriction, well, that's going to affect the way they kick. It's going to affect the way they dribble. It's not just going to affect the way they run and the way they jump. It's going to affect skills, not necessarily physical outputs only. So if we get the kids moving better, we improve their ankle mobility, we improve stability across different movement patterns, we know that they'll develop skills better as well, not just their physical output. So, it's going to help on multiple levels. The last one is more general, where if we get a kid who comes in at, in middle school, we can help them develop a healthy attitude towards exercise. As much as we want to help these kids be great soccer players, we also want them to develop into, healthy, well-rounded adults. And, if we get a kid who now understands how to exercise by the time they're 26, 27, hopefully that's a habit they can carry with them. And I think we all understand the benefits of exercise for general health, not just for playing sports. So if we can foster a healthy attitude towards it, and a couple of things we mean by that are making sure kids look at it as a positive thing. There's a lot of kids who look at exercise as a negative thing, in part because, sorry, go ahead, Leon.
We say, run laps as a punishment, or, do the fitness stuff as a punishment. So we're trying to get away from a push-up being a punishment.
Yeah, 100%. And we talk about with our kids and our coaches all the time that exercise is never a punishment. It's a positive thing. We don't want kids to, what's the first thing a kid wants to do at recess when they're in kindergarten? They want to go run around. What's the last thing a high schooler wants to do? They want to go run around. That's the last thing they want to do, because we've trained it out of them. We've taught them that running laps is something you do when you do something bad. We've taught them that it's a negative stimulus. So we want to make sure they have a healthy attitude towards exercise. And as they get older, hopefully they carry that attitude forward, not just through high school and college, but into their adulthood and going forward to stay healthy. So a couple of the basic benefits of training. Now, a couple of myths that we hear about training all the time, it's particularly related to that middle school group. The first one we get is, doesn't training too young stunt growth? And realistically, the answer is no. No research study has ever found that lifting weights stunts growth. There is no research that has ever suggested that stressing the tissue stunts bone growth, because growth for height and length is not the same as tissue growth. When the bone grows, the muscle stretches to adapt to that size. By making the muscle stronger, we don't stop the bone from growing. So there's no research, any study that has ever shown that training stunts growth. The next one is, doesn't training young athletes lead to injury? And the answer to that is also, for us, a resounding no. Age is not a precursor to a training injury. The fact of the matter is, training improperly at any age, regardless of how old you are, can lead to an injury. That's why it's important that we want the kids, this kind of goes back to the habits thing that we talked about, 2 slides ago, that we want kids to get started on the right foot when it comes to training. We want them to go through analysis. We want to be able to select the exercises that we think are appropriate for them. Throwing every kid under the barbell and saying go is not an answer to training. That's not an intelligent training program. We want to make sure that they're taught to do things right. And as it notes there in the bullets, kids are very impressionable. They do not exercise well on their own. They do the things that they think look cool, not necessarily what's right for them. And that leads to injuries. That said, the age is not what led to an injury. It's bad training method that led to an injury. It's unsupervised training that led to an injury. Truthfully, we get more adults who come to us with training-based injuries than we do young people, because they've done something they shouldn't have been doing, and adults tend to have more access. So we get adults coming, well, I was trying this lift at my gym or in my basement and I hurt myself. That's a more common one. We don't see young athletes getting hurt because they're young. That said, a lack of training for an athlete who wants to play competitive sport will lead to overuse injury. So if we have a kid who doesn't lift, from ages 11, 12, 15, 18, when they're 18, we might start seeing overuse injuries because they're just simply not strong. The tissue is not as strong as we want it to be. The joint is not as stable as we want it to be. So a lack of training is much more likely to lead to a future injury than obviously training is. Last one here, and when we get this more specific to soccer, is soccer players don't need to lift weights and get bulky. Isn't lifting weight bad for soccer players? This is another one where we say, no, it really doesn't. First of all, when the soccer players come here to train, it doesn't necessarily mean we're trying to make them bulky. Training is much more nuanced than that. We can train for speed, we can train for power, we can train for strength, we can train for hypertrophy, which is just getting bulky. And we can target our programs to whatever it is that athlete needs. Now, when a soccer player comes in, do they need hypertrophy? Generally speaking, no. So we don't train for hypertrophy. We don't train them to get bulky. We train them to be more powerful, and being big and being strong are not always the same thing. That said, strength and power are absolutely crucial for every non-endurance sports, whether you're talking about soccer, lacrosse, football, baseball, whatever it is what I would call a moment of truth sport, where there's an absolute physical capability that's going to be the difference between winning and losing. So on a header, it's who can jump higher. On a kick, it's how hard can you kick at that, again, moment of truth. For goalie, it's how far can you dive? Can you get to that part of the goal, or can you not? Can you reach the corners, or can you not? Those are what we call maximal power moments, which means you need to go through what we call the overload principle. We need to be able to add weight and be more explosive, carrying load. That's going to allow us to cover more ground. So we're not necessarily lifting to get bulky, but lifting weights is still crucial. It's still important. Now, it doesn't mean lifting weights wrong. It doesn't mean giving the same exercises to every kid. It does mean that loading when appropriate is going to help us develop the power and strength we need to be successful. Lifting weights is absolutely crucial for strength, power, and speed. Now, for those people out there who say, we don't want to get bulky or big, we put up this next slide, and then, we obviously have on the left here, Cristiano Ronaldo. One look at his leg. Unless you roll out of bed looking like that, chances are you need to get in the gym and put in some work. For that 0.1% of people who just naturally are that strong, good for them. But ultimately, if you want to be able to kick like him, if you want to be able to jump like him, well, you've got to be able to train to do the things that he does. Same for the middle slide there, Alex Morgan. You can see her leg is strong. She's not skinny. I don't think anyone would call her bulky. But at the same time, there's no doubt when you look at the muscle on the leg that she is strong. She's extremely strong. The muscle is developed. The person on the right is one of our own. That's Peyton McNamara, who was an All-American as a high school player. And in college, last year, she was Big Ten Freshman of the Year. She plays for the Jamaican national team, as well as Ohio State. She actually played against Alex Morgan last summer in the Jamaica versus U.S. matchup. You can see, again, her leg is strong. She's not sitting there on a skinny leg. She's got muscle in that leg. And that's really crucial. So when we get people who come to us say, hey, we don't want our kid to get bulky. Okay, well, we're not training to get bulky, but we are training to sure as hell get strong and powerful. And as you can see, when you actually break down these pictures, these people are strong. They do have muscular development, and they are training for strength and power. It's crucial. If you want to play at your own highest level, you've got to maximize your strength and power. And then that begins with training. And if 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we can begin building the foundation for that, I think we find that the kids are much better off for that. Here's a couple of case studies, and I apologize if the text is small to read on your phone, but I'll try to talk through them quickly. Just 3 inter kids who have been training with us for the last couple of years. Case 1, we'll just call him athlete A, started training with us when he was in 7th grade in 2020. At the time, he was a backup on the 2nd tier team. His coach and he himself identified that his on-ball strength was poor. He got pushed off the ball too easily, and he wasn't particularly fast. He originally partook in one of our Learning to Train programs, and then graduated to what we call our annual complete training program. Over those 2 years, he made significant strides. As his freshman year in high school, he ended up getting called up to JV while I was on the freshman team. I think he played in like the first 8 games. He had 9 goals or something like that. So he scored in I think as many goals as games he had played in. Recently he was named to the top team that he was available for at Inter. After having been a backup for the B team. So, we see significant change there. Case 2 is a very similar story, a slightly smaller, shorter time frame, but similar thing. So athlete B here started with us this past September. He was a tall, solid player. He wasn't a backup necessarily on his initial team, but he was not considered one of the fastest or the strongest players. He was just considered an adequate player in both areas, but certainly not ahead of the curve. I think now his coach has said he is significantly ahead of the curve. He's one of the 2 or 3 fastest players on the team. And he said he's one of the most aggressive players on the team. Physically, he's going after the ball in a way that he didn't in the past. And I think that what shows us having that strength base, it gives the kids a newfound confidence to go after things that otherwise they may not have gone after. And it's very much a similar story for KC. So this is a kid who started with just this past winter. He'd kind of been in and out of the team for a couple of years. He hadn't found himself a solidified roster spot. And when he was on a roster, he wasn't getting a ton of playing time, even though he was hoping to. Since he joined the Learn to Train program, for him, it's only been 5 months that he's been with us. In those 5 months, he's gotten stronger and faster, yes, but more noticeably, has just been his new confidence and assertiveness, just the ability that he said, I feel like I can get to this ball. I play with more confidence. I go after things I wouldn't have gone after in the past. In a quick turnaround time, are you going to see a huge difference over the course of 5 months? You'll see some difference. It's not going to be massive like it is in the case 1 here, but you'll definitely see a difference. But even more so, I think we see it mentally. Your physical capabilities give you the confidence you need mentally to play the game at a higher level. So these are just 3 case studies of kids who started at different times with us, who have gone from being borderline players, or in one case, a decent player, to being, getting a win. And a win could mean something different for different people. For some kids, a win is going from getting cut from your 7th grade team to being a starter. In other cases, it's getting a, All-American like Peyton. A win is different. But the fact that, we've been able to take kids of varying levels, whether they're already a decent player, whether there's a borderline player, or whether they're not even in the team, and get them to move up to the point where they're now more competitive than what they were, is what we're looking to do. And hopefully that affects those kids positively in the future, not just athletically, but also just mentally in their lives. They feel better about themselves and better about their success.
Alex, can you hear me here?
Yes.
Good. Sorry, I've lost the screen some way, but I just want to add another couple of case studies. I know they're not on your sleeves, but there's a young lady here right now that, it seems like the story has been like from middle of the road to like top, but I know there's a young lady here that's very good and comes on the year-round training, and she's really excelling above and beyond, so almost pulling away from everyone else.
Yeah.
There's that scenario, and then there's another young man that through being here was injured, and just by coming in and getting some rehab along the way, number one, you've helped with one thing which could have solved something that was a little bit more serious, but has come back very strong just after the rehab from after an injury. So there's I think I'm short there with those case studies, but definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of it, is we have kids who have been injured who come in and then they come back stronger. We had a girl who had an ACL tear last April. She was pushing 700 pounds on the sled by, I want to say it was October. She's 5 or 6 months off of surgery, and she's stronger than she ever was, and now she's playing better than she was before the injury. An ACL tear a couple of years ago, people would have said that's a 12-month recovery before you're playing. She's back 6 months, fully cleared to play, and now in 12 months she's far surpassed where she was. So it's definitely a huge thing for people who have dealt with injuries in the past, to make sure they're training right to prevent the injury from happening again, and to make sure that they recover properly. And hopefully in the case of the group that we're talking to, 6th to 8th graders, we haven't had a serious injury yet, but there definitely have kids who are. And we do have physical therapy, and we've seen good results from those. But even post physical therapy, return to training, return to full play, hopefully those kids continue to see the success that the last couple have had, and then we also see less injuries in the first place. But yeah, absolutely, Leon, those are definitely good points on the case of people who have been injured. Just to go through, college matriculation, obviously the goal for a lot of parents and for most kids in this area is to be able to move on beyond the level they're at, whether that's club or high school or middle school, to go on and play at a high level. So, right now the kids who graduate with us and play, all the way through their senior year, right now the number is actually at 94% now. Since this graphic was made, the number's gotten better, but 94% of our graduating athletes go on to play college sports. The national average is about 7% now. It's a little bit of a skewed statistic, because some of the kids who may not have ever had a shot probably don't come to us in the first place. But that said, there's a percentage of that number that obviously we account for, and we're very proud to see our kids go on to these college careers. About 56% of our kids end up with Division I opportunities, and I think that number is about 51% now for players who get scholarships. I'm pretty sure all the numbers are over 50%. And obviously for Division I and scholarship opportunities, the national average is about 2% of high school athletes end up with those opportunities. So, we want to be able to get as many kids from inter to bump up their play, whatever, gap it is that we can help them get better. We want to make sure we offer that and give them the opportunities that I know Leon and Marty have been working so hard to get them. We want to do our part to help them, get those opportunities as well. So part of what we wanted to talk about tonight then was just, how do we plan on getting involved, with these kids, and what are the opportunities to train? For the younger kids, who are still mentally not quite ready to go through a full training program, we do a fundamentals program where it's kind of game-like. That probably doesn't apply to the people in this meeting. The two that apply, or the one that really applies the most right now, is the Learning to Train program. So we normally target kids between the ages of 11 to 14, so that middle school group. And what we'll do is we'll take them through a group of training where it's literally just inter-players. We don't have anyone else. We'll still write them individualized programs. And we'll begin setting the foundation for future training. And this is a way to really get a soft entry into training, whether they're not thrown into larger groups or not with athletes from other sports. they're given an opportunity to kind of learn in a very comfortable environment, but still get the necessities of what they need and go through a complete comprehensive training program. Complete training is.
I'm going to check there just so, because I know you did mention about the individualized training, and one of the things that Alex does here at SPU is do a biomechanical integrity test, and on our website under the SPU bit, it does have a little bit about that, and it actually has Peyton doing one of the tests in an Inter shirt, and I know you just talked about that, and that just ensures individualized programs, imbalances in players, because no two people are the same.
Right.
So I don't know if you find any common traits amongst them, but I'm seeing that none of the players that are here have got the same sheet to go off, even though they're together. Yeah. They're doing their own individual work, right?
Yeah, philosophically, we 100% believe in individualization. If player A and player B walk in the weight room, there's no reason why we should put a workout on the whiteboard and just say go and have them do the same thing. Kids have different discrepancies in their movements. They have different restrictions, and we have to make sure we train intelligently. Not taking individualization into account is a way to cause an overuse injury. So we do it, briefly, without getting too deep into it. We do start every athlete with an analysis. We call it a biomechanical integrity analysis, which kind of tests how the kid moves, what exercises they're ready for, what exercises they're not. That way, when we write that kid a program, we know what's appropriate for them, and they're being given exercises that they can do properly. This is not a high school weight room where a coach just throws a workout on the board and just says go and lets the older kids teach the younger kids. That's not what we're doing. These kids are going to be coached on an individualized program, so they're really working out parallel to each other. Player A, B, and C have 3 different workouts, and they're there at the same time, but they're doing 3 different workouts next to each other. And the same is true for complete training. The only difference in complete training is you're not necessarily just with inter kids. You're now mixed into the group, and you're able to now make your own schedule. And the annual program is just like the complete training, except it's meant for the whole year. So you obviously get a significant discount for committing to working out consistently for that that 9.5 month period. For that entire school year. So in the summer, we do have a couple of programs, and I know Leon's going to send out more information on some of the summer programs. We do have some speed camps that run through June and July. We do have some camps that we're doing in conjunction with Inter. So we have a boot camp, so to speak, like a preseason boot camp, which serves as kind of a crash course into fitness. Preseason, we'll get a little bit of conditioning in to make sure the kids are ready, and we'll do it differently for each age group. So for the middle school, we do have a middle school group, both boys and girls separate. And again, I know Leon's going to send out some of the information on that. Lastly, I know Leon has also set it up for you guys to have a learning to train for the 6th to 8th graders through June, where you guys will be given the opportunity to try it out. And it's going to be given to you by Inter. And then July and August, you'll have the opportunity to register for it outright and have the kids partake in this training and hopefully lead up to their season in a very positive way and get them started on something that might parlay them into future success. And, for the kids who enjoy it and do well, it might be worth considering, okay, is this something we want to make a part of our routine going forward? And truthfully, it should be, if sport is something that, someone wants to take seriously, then putting yourself in the best position to succeed includes training your body, and then this is about the time to start considering if the kid is ready for that. So
yeah, I think the benefit for the Inter players is, from our point of view, we want our players to be as good as possible. But the thing that really resonates with me is the injury prevention, because on our badge there, love the game. You can't love the game if you're sitting on the side, Love the game more if they're playing. Love to learn. It's hard to learn stuff if you can't practice because you're injured, and it's hard to
right
with both for the starting lineup or against other people if you're on the side. So is the big thing.
Absolutely.
Alex, is that your last slide? I just want to be able to show the parents that are on here. I know there's frequently asked questions.
Yeah, I think the only other thing here is, I just wanted to answer any questions if anyone had one, but I know there's a couple of questions we tend to get fairly consistently. So, here are the 4 questions that I think are most commonly asked. The first one is, what if my child wants to work on speed and agility? And that's what every person wants. They want to get to places faster. Speed kills. We'll definitely work on speed and agility and workout programs. And then truthfully, speed has components of form and technique, and that's all well and good. It also has a lot of its basis in power and strength, where the more force you can put in the ground, the faster and further you're going to go. So absolutely, we're focused on speed and agility, because that's ultimately what we're looking to do, is allow kids to be more explosive. How often should my athlete train? For a middle schooler, we're going to say twice a week is plenty. If they're getting in twice a week, that's consistently, that's a really good structure for them to be in. I don't think they need to go much more than that when it comes to training. When they get to high school, we would say off season, we'd like to see them 3 or 4 times a week, and in season, maybe once or twice. And I know scheduling is tough and stuff, and that's why, that's one of the other notes that we have here. But we would like to see the kids be more consistent than anything else. Packing, we do these boot camp things as an opportunity to get kids involved, but I think we see a much greater benefit from the kids who are consistent on a year-round basis, rather than trying to pack a year's worth of training into 1 week, because that's not particularly effective, to be honest. Next one is, should my child train year-round? And I guess I kind of answered that, but the answer is yes. Training should be a consistent part of our life. If you play a sport, and then also if you don't play a sport, exercise should be a part of your life. So, it's not something you do for 3 months and then you're done. You don't do it for 3 months. Okay, I'm strong now, I'm done. You've got to keep going with it and maintain and keep growing it. Otherwise you will lose it. We do see kids who train for, 3 or 4 months in the off season, and then in season they stop training because they're busy. And then by the time they get to the end of the season, they've lost the strength they gained, and they're at their weakest at the end of the season when it matters most. And that's why you generally see injuries, and begin to you really see attrition and injuries later in the season, because kids are getting weaker and weaker as they move further and further away from training. So the more consistent we can be with training long term, the better off our body is physically going to be, regardless of sport, but specifically in sport. Yes. Lastly, the question we get is, look, my kid's busy. He plays soccer, he plays basketball, he has tutoring, he has whatever. I've got other kids. And first of all, I got 2 kids of my own. Schedules are super busy. It's hard sometimes. We try to make it as schedule friendly as possible. The learning to train, because we're doing it with other inter kids, is kind of condensed that one time. But honestly, we offer training from 3 to 8 every single day during the week, and 9 to 12 on Saturday mornings, and we just let people basically make their own schedule. In some cases, if you tell us, hey, what works for us is Tuesday, Saturday, we'll put you in for Tuesday, Saturday. Hey, it's Monday, Thursday, then it's Monday, Thursday. We try to be as flexible as possible. We understand scheduling is difficult, and we really try to make sure that we allow scheduling to be something that is friendly to the parent. Again, as I know, a lot of the coaches are parents, myself included. Being able to find time is not easy, but honestly, my perspective on it is we can find 2 hours a week. We just got to find 2 hours a week to put our physical health and fitness as a priority, and hopefully we can work with you to find a good time. So
yeah, I think we've had situations before where people feel like they need to get better at something soccer related, but it's one of those things that, like I said about the technique, it's hard to do technique sometimes if you're not physically ready. So, but people feel like, oh, I've got to do more soccer, got more soccer. Sometimes it's good to take a step back, get stronger at something, so that you're able to be better at soccer, because practice badly makes you very good at being bad.
Yeah.
So, that's
100%. No, that's a great point. You can kick the ball as much as you want. You can go through cones and drills as much as you want, but if your ankles are still restricted, and you're always going to have that ceiling, that you have an artificial ceiling set on you that we could remove. We talk about it in athletes from across all sports. And it's not just one of the really common ones we get is actually golfers. Golfers are like, well, I don't want to train. It's time for me to go outside and play golf. Like, well, if you can only rotate at X speed right now, you're not going to hit the ball any further, no matter how much you practice. You've put a restrictor plate on yourself without needing one, and it's something that we can help with. So I think a little bit of balance. You absolutely should be working on your soccer skills, obviously, but balancing that with working on the physical capabilities, that should lead to a better process towards development than just doing one thing. That is perhaps not addressing what it is your greatest need is. If you can't kick it that hard, you can do all the cone drills you want, but until the leg gets stronger, it's not going to do the job for you any better. So a little bit of balance between coaching and training, I think, is important.
Cool. Alex, if that's okay, before we get to the questions, I'm going to try to reclaim host.
Let me see if I can help you with that.
and I'll be able to
let me see here.
here. Bear with me. And it did ask me if I could reclaim because oh, here we go, reclaim. So I'm going to just so people can see real quick where the SPU stuff is on the website. If you go to InterCT, hopefully, can you see that, Alex?
Yep.
Yeah, we got
yes, we can.
Two types. You got under the programs, we got the Sports Performance U, and that is, and we are going to update that. We're currently into our spring area, and that's Peyton doing the biomechanical test. But these are the different summer-long training sessions, and it's got the benefits, etc., on there. And then if you want to listen to Alex talking about what he loves, it's down there. And then under summer camps, this is brand new. Obviously, we got the inter camps and we got the summer select. Under here is the fitness and soccer. And this is the year-long training, which will start September and hopefully run alongside our inter soccer programs. And these are the high school and the middle school aged. It's soccer and fitness. So it's 1 hour of soccer, 1 hour of doing the correct warm-ups and soccer related or the topic related fitness along the way. And then down the bottom is the speed camps. So that's that. But in the meantime, I think it's the people that are on here, Alex, I would send them an invite to try the Learn to Train, which we're giving for free, right? For the month of June.
Yeah, for June, yeah.
And I will be able to follow up with people here, and I've seen that who's on here. So they're able to get that in the summer and try it out. But,
yeah, absolutely. We'd love to see everyone in there and offer what we can. I've got another 5 or 6 minutes here. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions or chat. But hopefully I did a reasonable job explaining what I was trying to say.
Yeah. And our office is just here as well. So if and Alex is always around, he does love to answer any of your questions. Like myself, very passionate about what he does. So I know there's a few people on here, and I think people can unmute themselves if they need to. But what I would say is thank you for listening. If you do have questions, we'll be hanging around, but feel free to go. And, if you need to get me individually, Alex, how can they get you like from your website or anything like that?
Yeah, if you go to the Sport Performance U website, all the contact emails in there will pop up and go straight to me. And if you need a call, obviously our number is on there. It's on, I think it's on some of these documents as well. Yeah. But anything that's Sport Performance U related on the website will end up in my hands in some way, shape, or form. If you ever want to stop in and chat, I'm always happy to talk. And fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes I'll talk too long about this stuff, so you might have to stop me sometimes. So I'm always happy to chat about training and helping the kids and doing what I can to open doors for kids as best as possible. So
wonderful. Well, thanks for your time, Alex, and thank you everyone that took the time to listen in. And hopefully answered some of the questions about the importance of performance training for soccer players and especially for the middle school players who this was aimed at.